You know, for a Christian band, Flyleaf wasn't necessarily trying to push their religious beliefs of God on you. They were just out to make good music that just so happened to be Christian. That may have been a bad intro to this video, but it's been 6 years since Flyleaf last released an album, and it's leading a lot of people to ask the question, when are they going to come back, and are they ever going to come back? This is a band that was around for 15 years strong, have some classic albums in the post-grunge and emo era, but what has led to this hiatus? What are they doing now? And basically, will they just ever get back together? That's the question we're going to answer here today.
I'm so sick and infected with where I live. Let me live with.
Quick backstory on the band. They were formed in Bell County, Texas in 2002, and the following lineup was Lacey Sturm on lead vocals, Samir Baha Shira was on lead guitar and backing vocals, Jared Hartman was rhythm guitarist, Pat Seals played bass and did backing vocals, and James Culpepper did the drums. They did release an EP in 2002 titled Broken Wings. I couldn't find a lot on it, and they never necessarily gave an actual release date. It was just sometime in 2002. However, fast forward 3 years down the line, and they released their debut album, their self-titled debut album, on September 27th of 2005. This featured the singles I'm So Sick, Fully Alive, and All Around Me. All of those were live staples and fan favorites, still to this day, making them classics, especially I'm So Sick, with Lacey Sturm doing the screaming vocals to go along with her weird kind of singing vocals, but those vocals worked very well. Plus, she's got a high range in itself, and I think that's what made her one of the more fascinating female vocalists of the rock genre at the time. And another fun fact, Dave Navarro, formerly of Jane's Addiction, Red Hot Chili Peppers, he's worked with Nine Inch Nails, also did guitar on the song There For You, so that's a pretty interesting fact in itself as well. How big was Flyleaf exactly? Well, in 2007, still touring for this album, they got to tour with 3 Days Grace and Stone Sour, who at the time were two of the biggest rock bands in the world. Both had successful debut and sophomore records, and they were on top of the world as well. So this was a big deal for Flyleaf. They weren't necessarily the main event on those tours, but goddamn, when you are touring with bands like that, you kind of know that you've made it in some way. I mean, when people like that are recognizing you and want to go on tour with you, that says a lot. The band did have to cancel 5 shows during their tour with Seether in 2008 due to Lacey Sturm's voice. She lost her voice, couldn't sing, they had to cancel those 5 shows. So what did? They decided to regroup, and when Lacey's vocals got better, they decided to start recording for their long-awaited sophomore effort, as at this point it had been 3 years since the release of their first record, and nothing new came since. Their long-awaited follow-up, Memento Mori, was released on November 10th of 2009 and featured the singles Again, Arise, and Chasm. And the band at this point was even bigger than ever. It was a big weight, and I think people were fascinated. It wasn't necessarily a change, but they definitely did different things in their sound that made them sound even more interesting from their first record. They were still really on top of the world. They toured the US with Breaking Benjamin, and again, 3 Days Grace from January of 2010 up until March of 2010. And in December of that year, they also decided to release the EP Remember to Live. I guess this was kind of like a teaser for like the next album, or maybe this was just some stuff left over from Memento Mori. I don't know. I couldn't really find anything on that record. There wasn't any singles off of it. It just kind of dropped. On September 4th of 2012, so 2 years later, which also happened to be Lacey's birthday as well, Fuse aired the video for New Horizons, the lead single off of the album of the same name. Now, if you don't know what Fuse is, back in the day, it was kind of like my generation's MTV, where they mostly played music, but it was, you know, favored for not just mainstream stuff. It did play a lot of like the underground stuff. It basically was the MTV of the 2000s. However, something happened about a month later. On October 22nd of 2012, Lacey Sturm announced that she is leaving the band. This is 8 days before their new record was supposed to hit stores. She said the reason for her leaving was for the death of one of the audio engineers, Rich Caldwell, who was their audio engineer on Memento Mori, and of course there was going to be the birth of her first son, Jack, so she was pregnant at this point in time. Many left questions: who's going to be the new lead singer? Are they still going to be a band? What's going on? Well, they did announce shortly after that former Verdura lead singer Kristen May would be Sturm's replacement. And then fast forward 2 years later to July 21st of 2014, and the first single with May was released. It was called Set Me on Fire, and it was the lead single for their upcoming album Between the Stars, which released on September 16th of 2014. Now, they did tour for this album until 2016, and then there was an announcement made August of that year that Kristen May herself was also leaving the band. She basically stated that she wanted to spend more time with her family, and that she never really felt like she was a part of the band in the first place, considering these are all like founding members, and her, I guess they were just like, we write the songs, this, that, and the other. I don't necessarily know the full background to that, but something was obviously off here. And of course, right around that time, they announced an indefinite hiatus, and it still leads to that question even 4 years later. What's going to happen to the band? Are they ever going to come back? Are they ever going to release a new record? What is going to happen? Now, let's look at things this way. They don't necessarily have an album anniversary coming up until 2024, when Memento Mori would turn 15, as they missed their opportunity because their self-titled album turned 15 this year and they did nothing for it. And Lacey seems to still be doing her solo thing. She released her song The Decree, which leads me to believe that she has plans for a solo album, which would be her first since 2016. None of the band members seem to be just doing anything of the sort that has to do with Flyleaf, and I just don't necessarily know what to expect at this point. Like, part of me wants them to come back, but another part, it's kind of like the whole MCR thing, where you just kind of want to relive and cherish those moments. You don't necessarily want them to come back, because then if they do decide to write a new album, you just somehow know you're going to be underwhelmed with what you hear. Considering when Lacey left and their 2014 album came out, a lot of people were surprised and didn't really enjoy the album that much, because that post-grunge and alternative rock that they were known for basically didn't necessarily disappear, but they drowned it out for a lot more pop rock sound with Kristen May, and it just didn't feel like Flyleaf, and you were still left wondering, like, if they were to return, what would they do today? What would they sound like today? I maybe see them coming back for some anniversary tour at some point in time, whether it be for an album or just celebrating like a 20th year anniversary, something, this, that, and the other. Other than that, I wouldn't expect anything from them in the future, because the only other members that are left are, 4 of the original 5, just without Lacey Sturm, so they don't have a vocalist. And I don't necessarily know if Lacey wants to go back to Flyleaf. It's like Adam Ganche when he left 3 Days Grace, because the radio wanted them to become more mainstream than they already were, and that's not necessarily what he wanted for the band. And, he can still rejoin 3 Days Grace, but I just don't see that happening. It seems like he's fine doing his solo thing and not being in the spotlight a whole lot, and that's where I think Lacey is at this point. Like, she's still doing her own solo thing, but obviously, it's not as big as Flyleaf was, and I think she's okay with less of a spotlight on her. That Flyleaf, to her, I don't necessarily know if they left on bad terms or not. Like I said, all it gave me, the reason she left, was because a lot of personal issues were happening, and she was about to give birth to her son. So that was basically nothing about turmoil amongst the band, arguing amongst the band, this, that, and the other, just that in particular. So I don't even know if she still keeps in contact with her former bandmates or what, but it's pretty interesting how this band went from like superstardom to an album in 2014 that not a lot of people remember with a new lead singer, and then all of a sudden, boom, indefinite hiatus. Still haven't announced a breakup, just hiatus. Could mean we'll be back in 10 years, we'll be back in 2 years, we'll be back in 20 years, or we'll never be back, but we just don't want to say that we're going to break up. And I think that's one of the situations where they don't want to necessarily say it's the end because they want to hold up hope, but at the same time, now that we're getting to 6 years since their last album and 4 years since their last release, and Lacey Sturm seems to be doing her own thing solo-wise, and Kristen May basically saying, I didn't feel like I was a part of the band, I just don't see a Flyleaf reunion anytime soon in the near future. I'll probably be on my deathbed by the time that they decide, hey, we're going to come back one last time before we're all dead. That's just how I see it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. For more content similar to this, plus I do album reviews, flashback reviews, and other random videos that are related to music. So if you're into that stuff, go ahead and subscribe. But, until then, hope you stay safe out there, and I will catch you all in the next one.